Throughout human history, many tales have been told that regard curses, or depending on how the afflicted sees them, blessings. Often, the folklore goes that in exchange for some part of your being, you're bestowed a gift. This gift usually comes in the form of heightened senses, immense strength, incredible speed, and/or a physical change to the afflicted's appearance. However, the person ends up losing a part of themselves in the process. This can range from their sanity and free will all the way to their soul and divine being. In the universe of the elderscrolls, there's no shortage of divine exchanges. Vampirism, cultists, worshippers, lycanthropy, the list goes on. The subject makes a sacrifice, swears an oath, and/or pledges their allegiance to a deity. From there, the affliction is bestowed upon them. That usually comes with its own set of pros and cons, depending on who you ask, of course. Sometimes, though, a subject is unwillingly made into a follower. On the topics of vampirism and lycanthropy, that's exactly what can happen. A simple bite or attack can change one's life forever. From there, the Daedric princes, more like Baal or Hircine, will end up becoming your overseers. In fact, the latter and his curse are the topics for today's video. The mission, Ill Met by Moonlight, is Hircine's Daedric quest in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. It's filled with action, thrill, glory, difficult choices, and even a little bit of nostalgia. As per usual, I'm going to play through the quest, listen to the dialogue, and discuss my experiences with the story. Then, at the end, I'll talk about any lore, theories, themes, or messages that are present within this quest. To begin, the player can actually start this quest as early as level 1. It's one of the 7 Daedric quests that allows you to do so. Plus, depending on your choices in the game, it might not be a bad idea to run through it early on. Traveling to the city of Markarth, the player can wander through its streets until you land at its cemetery. Here, you'll spot rows of graves that belong to Skyrim's fallen soldiers. Standing in the midst of it all will be 3 NPCs. Matthias and Indara are the city's farmers, and Runel is the local priest. Together, the 3 of them appear to be holding some kind of service.
The god Arche was once like us, bound to winding mortality. But he willingly gave up this existence, that we might better understand the vagaries of life and death. It is through the ebb and flow of this cosmic tide that we find renewal, and in the end, peace. May the spirit of Lavinia and all those who have left this world and its suffering know the beloved serenity of Aetherius. And may we one day rejoin them in eternity.
Curious on what that was for, the player can approach the trio. Runel doesn't have much to say with regards to the service. You can ask about the graveyard, the divine arche, and conjuration, but nothing really comes of it. Chatting with Indara, there's even less to go off of. She says that her and her husband, Matthias, tend to the Corpselight farm. That's essentially just a hint on where to find the two if you'd lost sight of them. However, Matthias is the one who has all of the answers, and he's how the player can officially start the quest.
A sad time. The cemetery is ancient. It's been here longer than the town. I'm no scholar, but I know that a lot of battles have been fought here over the course of history. After each battle, more dead were buried and the graveyard got bigger. I heard it's now the biggest graveyard in Skyrim. Yes, and I couldn't tell you why. My wife and I think there's some dark magic at work. Or perhaps Arche's influence is strong here and he likes to keep it this way. Our daughter, our little girl, she hadn't seen her 10th winter. He ripped her apart, like a saber cat tears a deer. We barely found enough of her to bury. Sinding came through as a laborer. Seemed like a decent man. He's stewing in the pit while we figure out what to do with him. If you've got the stomach to look at him. What could drive a man to do something like this?
So, the person who the service was being held for, Lavinia, ends up being Indara and Matthias' daughter. Her murderer, Sinding, is currently being held prisoner in the guard barracks. Matthias' autopsy of the kill was quite interesting. He said that Lavinia was ripped apart, practically as if a wild animal had done it. I'm sure men, mer, and beast folk are capable of committing crimes like this, but surely there's more to this story. What's the motive? Why would this Sinding do it, and what was his murder weapon? Heading on into the barracks and descending to the jail, the Dragonborn can interrogate the Nord. However, instead of answers, it really only leads to more questions.
Come to gawk at the monster. Believe me, it wasn't anything I ever intended to do. I just lost control. I tried to tell them, but none of them believed me. It's all on account of this blasted ring. This is the Ring of Hersing. I was told it could let me control my transformations. Perhaps it used to, but I'll never know. Hersing didn't care for my taking it, and threw a curse on it. I put it on, and the changes just came to me. I could never guess when. It would be at the worst times. Like with the little girl. I don't suppose there's a point in keeping the secret if I'm going to die in here anyway. I'm sure you've heard of men who shift to beasts under the influence of the moons. I am one of them. A werewolf. It's my secret and my shame. That's why I wanted the ring. It was said to give men like me control. Now, I may look like a man, but I still feel the animal inside of me as strong as ever. Do you not know the Daedric Lord of the Hunt? He revels in the chase, and also gave the gift of lycanthropy to mortals. A powerful force not to be crossed, as I learned too late. I had just come into Falkreath. They needed some help working the mill, and I thought that would be something safe, something I could do. When I saw the little girl, I could feel it coming on. I could taste it. I needed to hunt, but this pitiful, limited body wasn't meant for hunting. Slow, no claws, weak, mashing teeth for chewing cud. I held in my rage as long as I could, but it boiled inside of me. She looked so fragile, helpless prey, and then I feel terrible about what happened, about what I did. It would probably be best for everyone if I just went away. I've been looking for a way to appease Hersing. There is a certain beast in these lands, large, majestic. It's said that Hersing will commune with whoever slays it. I tracked it into these woods, but then I had my accident with the child. I want to beg his forgiveness, give him back the ring. But while I'm stuck in here, the beast wanders free. Oh my. You would do this for me? Here, take it. I don't want anything to do with this wretched thing anymore. Seek out the beast. He wanders these woods. Bring him down and, well, the Lord of the Hunt should smile on you. I wish you luck, but you leave here while I still have my skin. Should our paths cross again, I will remember your kindness. Farewell.
For those who have played through the Blood Moon DLC of Morrowind, you just might remember this ring. If not, I'll go over it later in the video. But for now, with the ring no longer in his possession, Sinding transforms into the beast and escapes from prison. However, it only gets better. The cursed Ring of Hersing has been added to the player's inventory. What's more, it gets auto-equipped, and depending on your choices leading up to this point, you may or may not be in for a wild ride. The ring causes the wearer to randomly become a werewolf. This can be extremely unforgiving if it happens in the wrong place at the wrong time. However, in the case of my character, I had already become a lycanthrope and cured the affliction through the companion's questline. Therefore, the ring had no effect on my Dragonborn. Furthermore, if you've never been afflicted with the curse, then you'd also have nothing to worry about. Really, it's just those who actively have the disease that should travel with caution. If that's your character, it's probably best to clear away from Falkreath as soon as possible. Either way, once out of the city, the next phase of the quest begins. The player's current objective is to find and kill the quote, Great Beast. This being is located in the wilderness of Skyrim, slightly east of the city. The cobblestone pathways will get you most of the way there. After that, a simple climb up the rocky mountainside should have you landing at your target. Hearing the name, the Great Beast, I was expecting something more along the lines of a bear, a saber cat, or even a troll, something mighty and ferocious. However, it ended up being something quite different. A majestic white stag was the prize. It didn't dare fight back. Instead, after laying eyes on the Dragonborn, it takes off like the wind and books it further into the wilderness. Fortunately, the stag will stop at some point, believing it to be safe and out of harm's way. This is when the player can sneak up to it and take it out with whatever means necessary. After the stag is dead, something peculiar happens. A specter of the Great Beast appears and wanders over to the player. This is an aspect of the Daedric Prince here seen.
Well met, Hunter. I am the spirit of the hunt. Just one glimpse of the glorious stalker that your kind calls Hircine. I may consider it, but you must first do a service for my glory. The one who stole it has fled to what he thinks is his sanctuary. Just as a bear climbs a tree to escape the hunt, but only ends up trapping himself. Seek out this rogue shifter. Tear the skin from his body and make it an offering to me. Fly, my hunter. There are others who vie for my favor. A bit of competition. Don't dally while the prey flees.
In that moment, the Dragonborn can try and decline the prince's offer. However, it's to no avail and the quest continues on. Peering at the map, the next destination is a cave called Bloated Man's Grotto. It's well north of Falkreath and just northwest of Half Moon Mill. Interestingly, the game's description for this stage of the mission is brief and to the point. Begin the hunt. It's very much like Hircine to set the rules, but not to intervene in the actual game itself. He's always seemed more like a passive Daedric Prince, at least in certain scenarios. There are of course the events of the Elderscrolls 3's DLC, which I'll be discussing later. In any case, arriving outside the grotto, you'll spot remnants of some recent activity. More than likely, this was Sinding's doing, and who knows how much further his bloodlust will go. Now, entering the grotto, the atmosphere really starts to change. The world gets this orange-reddish tint to it. There's a thick haze in the air. The sky and the moon are both red, practically as if the blood moon and the great hunt have begun. What's more, death is rampant in the grotto. Some of your first scenes are gore, corpses, and carnage. A small hunting party has beat you to the grotto, but they certainly were unsuccessful in taking down their prey.
Has the blood moon called you, fellow hunter? The prey is strong, stronger than the hunters. But more will come. Bring him down for the glories of Lord Hircine.
Well, the hunt is officially underway. Sinding has already claimed at least 5 victims, and if you're not careful, you could become the 6th. Quickly surveying the hunting camp, the most useful things that you'll find here are potions from the dead. These will come in handy for the journey ahead. Making your way along the one and only path, it actually doesn't take long for the Dragonborn to encounter the lycanthrope. Sinding is perched on one of the rocks overhead, and he's quite surprised to see you.
And I would deserve it, wouldn't I? I can't stop you if that's what you want to do. Hircine is too powerful. But if you spare me, I can be a powerful ally to you. And I would promise to never return to civilized life. I know now that I can't live among people.
This is where the player has to make a choice, and depending on your decision, it affects the outcome of the quest. You can either choose to spare Sinding's life, or you can continue with your mission and hunt him down. Of course, I'll be exploring both options. The first one I tried out was sparing the werewolf's life.
Thank the gods. Now let's deal with these other hunters. We hunt together.
All things considered, Sinding appears to be in his right mind. I've encountered other werewolves in the game that were flat out feral. No sense of self or self-control. However, Sinding is calm, can communicate with the Dragonborn, and even creates an alliance with you. The only other sophisticated lycanthropes that I've seen are the companions, and even then, they didn't appear to show this much discipline. Either way, with this pathway, The objective is plain and simple: kill all of the other hunters. From here, Sinding becomes a temporary follower. The player leads him through the rest of the grotto, and along the way, hunters begin to spawn in. In total, there are 8 enemies that the Dragonborn and Sinding need to defeat. The first 2 are Rissing and Strasuna, a Nord and a Khajiit. All of the bandits have radiant levels, which can vary from 1 to 25. The next 3 hunters are Torkild the Fearsome, Jarl Grogatuk, and Ariana, another Nord, an Orc, and a Redguard. The latter 2 rely on swords and bows, while Torkild wields a mighty battle axe. For the most part, Sinding is actually able to take on every single hunter by himself. While in beast form, he can pack one heck of a punch and has a great deal of health. Of course, he does have to worry about health regen and getting swarmed by the hunters, but that's what the player's there for. So long as you don't accidentally attack him, he remains your ally for the time being. The final 3 hunters are Rakaran, Heritar, and Ajisi, 2 other Khajiit and another Nord. The former 2 prefer close combat to ranged, while the latter wields a bow and arrow. Truly, this is the lengthier outcome for this quest. 2 lower level players, barreling through 8 fully armed hunters might not be the easiest thing to do. The best way to get through it is by sticking behind Sinding and supporting him through melee combat. Ranged attacks can be quite risky here, as if you clip the werewolf by accident, the scene changes greatly. Once all 8 hunters are dealt with, the Dragonborn can speak with Sinding once more to close out the quest.
Thank you for your help. I will make my home here, away from anyone I might hurt.
Closing out the conversation, the blood moon comes to an end. The reddish tint goes away, the haze clears, the night sky becomes visible, and the moon returns to normal. The only thing the player can do from here is exit the grotto. Although, what of Hircine and the Cursed Ring? Well, while the journal puts an end to the quest, it doesn't mean that the game does the same.
Well met again, Hunter. So you may think. By bringing down my other hunters, you turn the chase inside out. And they were no base prey. You continue to amuse and impress. Go forward, my blessing.
While not the outcome that the player might have been expecting, Hircine has seen all possible endings. He claims to have foreseen this one as well, a timeline where the player becomes the hunter. Even though he was defied, his will wasn't. Because of that, the player still ends up receiving a reward, and almost a blessing of sorts. The curse from Hircine's ring gets lifted. Now it gives the player additional on-command transformations for their werewolf form. It also adds leeway with health regen while in beast form. Now, if you aren't a werewolf, don't plan on becoming one, or have already cured your affliction, this ring won't be very useful for you. You could sell it for a couple hundred gold, or you could do the alternate ending and receive a different reward, one that might prove more useful for your loadout. Reverting back to the hunt in the grotto, when Sinding asks you to stay your blade, this time you can choose to reject his offer.
So be it.
As mentioned earlier, this outcome has the potential of being much shorter than the previous one. Sinding leaps away from his rocky perch, and the player begins their chase. After a quick stumble through the stone ruins, you'll spot Rissing and Sasruna fighting against the beast. If you're quick enough, you can kill the werewolf before he wreaks havoc through the rest of the hunting party. For the most part, Sinding is an easy fight, especially since you have a couple of other hunters on your side. Once he's been defeated, you can interact with its corpse. From there, you'll have the option to skin Sinding. Choosing to do so, you'll find yourself completing this quest.
You've done well, Hunter. And found my favor. That skin will serve you well, child. Look more closely at it. My glory shall protect you from all this world's grievances. Good hunting.
Hircine takes away the cursed ring as well as Sinding's skin, and in their wake, he leaves you with the Savior's hide. Similar to the Ring of Hircine, this isn't the first time you'll have seen this artifact. The Savior's hide is a unique, enchanted light armor cuirass. It increases magic resistance by 15% and increases poison resistance by 50%. While stylish, it certainly leaves little to the imagination when it comes to the Dragonborn's legs. If not for you, then the Savior's Hide can be sold for an even prettier penny than the ring. From here, the grotto reverts back to a quieter space. The blood moon is gone, the great hunt is over, and Hircine has been appeased. The surviving hunters leave the area, ill met by Moonlight comes to an end, and the Dragonborn moves on to the next adventure. Really quick, according to the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, there are apparently a few ways to end up with both the armor and the ring. Apparently, there are even ways to end up with both rings, the cursed and non-cursed version, as well as the hide, so all three. While I did try out a couple of these methods myself, I unfortunately didn't have any luck. A big component for most of these exploits is to turn into a werewolf, and obviously for my character, that can't be done anymore. There are apparently ways to meet with both aspects, dump a quest item into a chest, betray Sinding at the end, etc. I'd be really curious to hear if you had more luck with these methods than I did. Alright, let's talk a little bit about this stage of quest. As I mentioned before, there are elements in this mission that some of us might have seen previously in the Elder Scrolls games. For example, the Savior Hide makes an appearance again. We've seen it in Oblivion for Hircine's stage of quest. However, in the 4th installment, its sole enchantment was to resist magic by 25%. On that same note, in the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, the cuirass could be found in the base game. It also only had one enchantment, and it was also to resist magicka. Only, this effect was for 60 points on self. To scale, that's a lot of magic resistance and arguably the most powerful variant of the cuirass. Then, interestingly enough, the Savior's Hide makes an appearance in the Elder Scrolls Blades, as well as Battlespire. For Battlespire, the Hide's creation is accredited to Malakath as opposed to Hircine, which is quite interesting. Beyond that lengthy list, there aren't any more appearances for this cuirass. Something worth noting though, in Skyrim, it's one of the few armor pieces that holds a magicka resistance enchantment, as apparently those are hard to come by. So it might be worth keeping around, even if your character isn't proficient in light armor. As for the ring, this is an artifact that's come up a few less times in the history of the Elder Scrolls, but it's something we've still come across before. For Morrowind's Blood Moon DLC, the Nerevarine takes this relic from Tharstan Heartfang, and in the Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall, this is awarded to the player after completing Hircine's stage of quest. In all 3 games this ring is featured in, it has the same effect, transform to a werewolf at will. That also means in 2 of the 3 games, as Morrowind's leeway with its effects are a bit different, the ring is useless to those who are no longer werewolves. Now, as for the cursed version of the ring, that's a new one for Skyrim. The Elder Scrolls V is the only time where we see the ring get tampered with by the Daedric Prince. Maybe Hircine felt it was a little too powerful during the 3rd era, so he needed it toned down a bit for the 4th. Or the developers just decided to add their own spin on things. Take your pick for your headcanon. Ill Met by Moonlight is one of Skyrim's shorter Daedric quests. It's fairly linear in that it sets you up to go to certain locations at specific times, from Falkreath to the wilderness to Bloated Man's Grotto. Really, you're only speaking with a handful of NPCs as well. The mandatory 4 are Matthias, Sinding, Jakir, and the collective aspects of Hircine. Beyond that, it's straightforward with the hunters and any excess NPCs like guards and Runel. All things considered, this was as Hircine of a quest as they come. Werewolves, hunters, prey, a grand hunt, and a choice on which side to fight for. I think because of that, it's hard to docket points in any category. It was as textbook as a quest belonging to the Lord of the Hunt should have been. There weren't any arbitrary or random fetches or bounty hunts. Everything appeared to have a relevant place within this quest and its lore. However, Mehrunes' razor to my head, if I had to call that out on something, I'd almost say it was a little too straightforward. This quest was opened, embarked on, and then closed. There were little to no loose ends by the conclusion. Every stone was set back in place. Nothing could be done further with Lavinia, Matthias, or Indara. The latter two just go back to their simple farming lives. It almost seems like their tragedy was put in place in order to simply introduce the player to Sinding. Once all is said and done, Bloated Man's Grotto returns to its animalistic nature. Hircine's aspects are gone, player gets their reward, and depending on the route you chose, Sinding is dead. There's nothing really to think on here. There doesn't appear to be more worth exploring with this quest. I guess I'd say that it doesn't leave a lasting impression. It's over and done with. However, There are a few things that might be worth discussing. For starters, if the player chooses to spare Sinding, what becomes of him after? Does he stay in the grotto? Does he return to civilization? Or does he find an even more remote place to live? Well, according to the UESP, he doesn't normally stay in the grotto, and he doesn't return to Falkreath or any other hold for that matter. It's likely that you'll find the Nord wandering around Skyrim's countryside, although interacting with him will be futile. For the most part, he'll just ignore the player and stick to his script. There are some bugs where Sinding can apparently be found in a few places at the same time. After the quest has been completed, he might call the jail as well as the grotto his home, appearing in both places. Another bug might occur if the player kills Sinding. Again, he might be visible in both the Falkreath jail and the grotto, only this time he won't be alive. It would just be his corpse that's found in these two areas. Speaking of Sinding, what of his background? He's the main focal point for this quest, so what kind of lore is there for him? Well, unfortunately, there isn't much. In fact, I don't think there's any at all. All we really hear about him is that he was new in town and that he was meant to work the mill in Falkreath. That's about it. It's tough to lean one way or the other on how long he's been a lycanthrope for. Through context clues, my initial guess was that he's been afflicted with this curse for some time. He seems to have decent self-control while in beast form, barring the murder of Lavinia of course, but that was part and due to the cursed ring. He's able to fully communicate with the Dragonborn while in beast form, and he even reasons with you. The newest werewolf I've seen in Skyrim is the player while you're working with the companions. Our characters didn't demonstrate that much intelligence while out on the prowl. That's what leads me to believe that Sinding has had some experience with the transformations prior to this quest. Plus, to have knowledge on the Ring of Hircine and to take it for yourself, your newly turned pup probably wouldn't go for that one as easily, but in the end, who really knows? However, where I sort of lean away from him being a seasoned lycanthrope is the setup for this mission. A mysterious man comes into town looking for work. He thinks he can handle it when all of a sudden, he hulks out and slaughters a little girl. Fast forward to his dialogue in Broken Man's Grotto. Sinding says something along the lines of, "I know now that I can't live with other people." Paraphrasing again, he also says, "If you spare me, I'll live a life of isolation." So, what was Sinding doing before this then? How was he living? If he had these newfound revelations on his beast form, to me this could mean one of two things. Either he was already living in isolation, perhaps a cabin, cave, fort, or grotto. After a while of being on his own, he wanted to see if he was ready for a communal lifestyle again. And of course, the rest is history. This obviously leans more into him being a werewolf for a little bit now. Or, the other side of the coin is that Sinding was freshly turned. He was still learning how to handle his beast form and his savage urges. Thinking he had them mastered, he returned to the civilized world and got a horrible wake-up call that, yeah, his life is forever changed. It's honestly a tough story to piece together, especially without any information to go off of. I suppose for now, all we can really do is speculate and create our own headcanons. Now, the final topic for this video is unfortunately all too common with these Daedra quests in Skyrim: cut content. It seems like Bethesda was fairly ambitious with a lot of these missions, and unfortunately, for one reason or another, a lot of them got dumbed down. This is technically unrelated, but I just wanted to share this as I found it to be pretty neat. According to the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, Runel, the priest of Arkay from the beginning of the quest, allegedly had his own quest about him that would have explored his past connections with the Thalmor. I learned this as I was researching Matthias, as he has some dialogue left in the game regarding that news. If you've watched some of my other videos, then you'll know how much I yearn for more Thalmor related content. It's a shame that this one got cut out, as I would have really enjoyed playing through it and dissecting it for this channel. Anyways, that's not important to this video. What is important though is what's missing from Ill Met by Moonlight. There are already a bunch of parallels between this quest and Morrowind's Blood Moon DLC. So, is it any surprise that there were in fact supposed to be more? The Witches of Glenmoral are a reoccurring witch coven in the Elder Scrolls. They help to cure the Nerevarine of lycanthropy and the Hero of Kvatch of vampirism. They also played a role in ridding the Dragonborn and Codlac Whitemane of their lycanthropy in Skyrim. Well, according to the UESP, there are unused dialogue topics and game files that suggest they also had a role to play in this quest. It's possible that the Glenmoral witches were meant to transform Sinding's skin into the Savior's hide. This sounds like it was replaced in favor of Hircine doing it, possibly for convenience's sake or for a more consolidated story. Furthermore, you are also supposed to ask Sinding about them. All the topic says is DA05, Sinding explained Witch's topic. This to me is fairly interesting, considering he has the most to lose with their involvement. If I had to piece it together, this is just my 2 cents, I would guess that Hircine was really only meant to play a role during the White Stag hunt and if the player chose to kill all of the other hunters. While speaking with his aspect after hunting the White Stag, maybe Hircine's directions were different. Kill Sinding, take his skin, and then deliver it to the witches. From there, you visit the witches and possibly meet with Lucerne, an unused named Hagraven that's still in the game's files. All things considered, I don't think it's the biggest change to a quest that we've seen. If it really was as simple as delivering the skin to the witches, then it sounds like just the ending portion of the quest was altered. Well, of course, a little simpler, it could be as though the action and content of the mission were kept the same. However, maybe it wasn't. Maybe there was a lot more to it than what we got. Perhaps the witches played a grander role in the middle section of the quest. Maybe they had a larger involvement than what the game's files tells us. Perhaps Bloated Man's Grotto was a last-minute addition too. Maybe with all of the changes that were made, Bethesda had to think on the fly and move the hunt to a brand new area. Really, without any concrete evidence, it's difficult to determine what the original vision for this quest was. It's probably an answer we'll never get either. However, I do have a theory as to why the Glenmoral Witches were removed from this quest. During the Companion's questline, specifically the quest, Blood's Honor, the Dragonborn is sent to the cave, Glenmoral Coven, in search of the witches' heads. Here, you have the option of killing every single Hagraven. There's no dialogue, no options for peace, just violence. Maybe it's because of the plot point for this quest that the plot point for Ill Met by Moonlight had to be altered. The Dragonborn's disposition and relationship with the witches would have been muddy and confusing. The kickers, though, are where the Coven is located and what's inside of their lair. Their cave is northwest of Falkreath, just west of Half Moon Mill. That takes place around the same questing area as the rest of Ill Met by Moonlight. As for the Coven's contents, there's a bloodied altar in there that's believed to be dedicated to Hircine. If that's the case, maybe you were meant to bring the skin and or the ring to this shrine. After all, a lot of the Daedra quests in this game, not all but quite a few, have some connection to a shrine, whereas this one seems to be void of that. Perhaps that was part of the cut content. Plus, this mysterious unused Hagraven, Lucerne, maybe she was meant to spawn in at a certain stage for this quest, and from there, she becomes the link between the Dragonborn and the Savior's Hide. This certainly feels like the perfect storm for what could have been, but unfortunately, again, we'll never quite know. I did enjoy Ill Met by Moonlight. I thought it was an excellent demonstration of Hircine's personality and showmanship. However, it was just a little too simple. Nothing stood out that much for me, and what little that did, there weren't any ways to follow up with it. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this quest down below, and until next time, keep on adventuring.